Turn it over to them. We'll talk a little bit about what you've been doing today, primers made, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you know, we historically we come here and run really well. In the last few years, we just have struggled some. So this is one of the places that we really wanted to come here and get a test in. We had a really fast car here in the spring on long runs, but on short runs we were just horrible. So we drove up to about 5th or 6th. And had the thing gone green, we thought we had a chance to win the race. But the minute the caution came out, we just were no good on restart. So we got to try to find a way to find a balance between takeoff speed and rear grip late in the run, and so that's why we're here. We've been working on that. Hopefully we've made some gains. How you doing, Charles?
Adam. All right. Well, I've got two for you here. First off, can you talk a little bit about what the advantages of testing at Martinsville bring you? And secondly, can you talk about the track for a moment?
Well, you know, testing anywhere is there's a couple of different ways to approach it. There's many different ways to approach it, but you know, you go to some race, you go sometimes to test, and you're testing out concepts, you're testing out ideas, versus going and practicing for the race and just trying to fine tune your car for this racetrack. I think this racetrack, you do more of the latter because there's no other Martinsville. There's no other track that we really can take the information that we learn here and go somewhere else with. So when you see people here testing, they're looking for an advantage at this racetrack. Now there's a few things I think you could take from here and go to other places, but it's not like going to Charlotte where you can take that information and go to almost every mile and a half because aerodynamics is so important. But here aerodynamics are always important, but not as important by any means. It's more about getting each tire to grip the way you need to, and the stuff that we do here just doesn't translate to anywhere else. So at this racetrack, it's about learning for this particular track. And then understand what your car can and can't do, what affects your car, so that when you come back and the track is different, because it will be, what changes do you immediately want to start working on? So I think Martinsville is a little different place to test than some other places we would go.
David?
Jeff, do you have any more clarity on your situation for next year?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of clarity. I just can't talk about it just yet. But I can almost talk about it, but I just can't. And it's going to be, I don't know when I'm going to be able to. It's going to be a couple of weeks. But a lot of stuff happened toward the end of last week and early yesterday. So yeah, it's getting real clear to me what's going to be going on, but I'm just not at liberty to discuss it right now.
Cup level?
I'm sorry?
Cup level?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, you know a lot about the track itself and the history of this track. Tell me what it means to you to be able to come to such a historic track twice every year.
Well, you know, I think it's fun coming here, especially today. After the late model stock car race, Sunday. I'm a big fan of that race. To me, I was working on my late model car in my shop when Clay Earls made the announcement on MRN radio there was going to be a late model stock car race the next year, and I couldn't believe that I would be able to come here and race. And can remember coming here and practicing and testing and Clay shooing the geese out of here, because there used to be a pond over there, and the geese would come in, and he would come in here and tell them to get out, and they'd all leave. And I thought, I bet my parents wish I would listen as well as his geese listen. But all that stuff. I won my first nationwide race. I won here. My dad told me if I made the late model stock car race, he would build me a new car. So this track has really meant a lot to me. And just every time I come here, I think of those things. I mean, it's more to me. It's more than just an everyday race. It means something. It means something to this area too. I mean, this part of the country has been hit, really, really hard economically, and with tobacco leaving years ago, and then textile leaving years ago, and then all the stuff that's gone on. This area has just been decimated. And to have this race here 2 times a year helps this area a great deal. And it would be a huge mistake to ever leave here, because if you don't embrace your past, you won't have a good future. And this is one of those places that it's so unique and so different. It belongs on the schedule, and some people hate it. That means it deserves to be on the schedule. because it's supposed to be hard. This is the highest form of racing in North America. It's supposed to be hard. You're not supposed to just be able to ride around the racetrack running wide open all the time. It's supposed to be difficult. So this place deserves to be on the schedule.
Speaking of unique, the clock's really unique. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
About what? I'm sorry?
The clock, how you guys run a clock here.
Well, I've got two of them, and it's one of those really unique traditions that every trophy is special. I mean, I wouldn't trade any trophy that I have, but anytime you can, that tradition is just really cool, and to win a clock means a lot. It really does.
To put something in perspective, some of these young folks, you're talking about that first late model race. How old were you?
Oh, I would have been 16, 17, something like that.
1985.
Well, I'm not as old as you, but I'm getting there. I don't know what year it was.
I've been divorced 3 times from 85. Yeah, it was 85 was the first year.
I was. That adds years to your life too. I don't know. I mean, all I know is that I remember being in my shop in the backyard of our house. So that would have been, had to be when I was a senior in high school. Had to be in that time frame. So around that time.
How important do you think it is for guys like yourself to stay at the Cup level? I mean,
Well, I think here's what I think. I think it's important to have young guys coming in. I think it's important to have older, experienced guys in here as well. It's a natural rotation. The guys that I grew up racing, they're not racing anymore. And I thought about it last weekend. I walked in the garage with Richard Petty, and I thought, I never raced with Richard Petty, but what an honor to be able to, those generations, still be doing it. And him as an owner, me as a driver, and then there's another generation coming that, is just a lot younger. So I think it's important to have both.
What's your advice to them, and more specifically the Dillon boys, because obviously they're linked pretty tightly to RCR?
Well, every situation is different. I mean, the Dillons have a different situation than someone who is not in their same situation. So, for those guys, it's more about them being able to focus on their racing, and don't let the distractions get in the way. Just focus on the racing. For some other guys that aren't in their opportunity, they need to focus on the racing, but they first got to figure out how they're going to race. And so every situation is unique. And the common thing though is this has to be a passion. If you look at this and you say, well, I saw Mark Martin race for as many years as he raced, and he has a nice airplane and has a nice house, and I want that life. It ain't gonna work. You can't run. I read a quote the other day. You can't run with money in your pockets. You got to run with, you got to have enthusiasm. And if you're doing this because you want to be a big name or you want the money, I'm sorry, it ain't gonna work. It's got to be from the heart, and because this is too damn hard to think that it's always going to go well. And if you don't have that passion, you won't get through when it's hard. So first and foremost, make sure this is really what you want to do. Your dad hadn't talked you into it. The money hadn't enticed you. It's got to be a passion.
On that same subject, Larson's making his debut Saturday night. Austin's moving up. You hear about Ryan Blaney being in demand. You hear some teams saying they're looking at young guys for Cup cars. Is the sea change coming? I mean.
Well, I think we went a long time with no change.
Yeah.
And the economy had a lot to do with that, because when corporations aren't readily spending money, the young drivers aren't getting shots. Well, we went a long time with no change, and now we're going to see a flood of it. And by the way, this is probably, since I've been in the sport, I view this as the 3rd time that we've had this youth explosion. Right when I came into the sport, go back and look at the picture of my Rookie of the Year class. It was about 12 of us in that picture. Compare that to the Rookie of the Year classes we've had the last several years. Then we had another time where a lot of young drivers came in, and Ward got caught up in that one. Ward got caught up in the, oh, well, you got to be 20. If you're not 20, then you don't want to do it anymore. And then, he was part of the group that got moved out. And now it's happening again. So this is the third time that I've seen it happen. And, it's, and I'm one of the older guys. It's just part of it. It's part of it. It's necessary. It brings new excitement. So, it just happens.
Yeah.
You talk about embracing the past, and Martinsville is certainly that link to the past. Do you think there is a bit of a disconnect between the current NASCAR fans and the current product, and that coming to a place like Martinsville is a chance to try to, one, bridge that gap and bring the two entities back together? And do you think we need more of it, whether it's like North Wilkesboro or tracks like that?
I think we suffer a great deal when the Nationwide Series and the Truck Series quit going to South Boston, quit going to Orange County, quit going to Hickory, quit going to those racetracks. I think over time we lost the connection between the short track racing and the big time, let's call it. It seems to be such a difference between what local racers are doing and what we are doing that I ultimately don't think that's necessarily good for the sport. And so when we come to a place like this, the race fans haven't watched a nationwide race from South Boston or a truck race from Orange County or something to that extent. And so when we come here, it's like, what is that? And so the younger fans don't there's no gap, there's no bridge in that gap. So I really think that hurts us, which is why I've been promoting for the last year that our all-star race needs to be on a short track. When I say a short track, I mean a real short track. And because we do need to bridge that gap. I'm sorry, the best racing is on the shorter tracks. It just is. And we need to take advantage of that.
Adam, Charles, and Jonathan, and that's it.
We just had Kurt Busch in here not too long ago, and he kind of questioned why there aren't lights at this track. Do you think that Martinsville would benefit by being able to do some night racing?
I don't know. I don't have the. I truly don't. I don't have the understanding of why a night race is better than a day race.
Is it something that you'd like to see come to the track?
The sparks would be cool. I don't know. I think ultimately that's a decision. I will say this: the race fans, there seems to be a little different energy at night for night races. But also a Saturday night race in October could be unpleasant. So there are a lot of things that go into making that decision, and I don't know. To me, a race is a race, and I really don't care if it's night or day. I honestly don't. But some people really like. I think that a lot of the fans do like the night races. But again, I grew up here, well not here, but pretty close to here, and a late October race at night could be not a lot of fun.
Charles?
They don't let you build fires in them. Although there was a fire last week.
Yeah,
Talk about loving Martinsville. Are you proud of the fact that the track is stayed up to date? The staff here are sorry to keep this track,
And that is the key to staying relevant, is to not give anybody an excuse to say we've outgrown you, And this track, although the track is the same, the grandstands have continually been upgraded. The media center, the infield care center, the safer barriers, all that stuff's continued to be upgraded, and that shows a commitment to keeping us here. And some of the tracks that lost some dates didn't do that. They really lagged behind and didn't want to make that investment, and this facility has been willing to make that investment.
Final one, John.
Two parts. I guess Clay Campbell's been here 25 years. Could you speak on that? And then also going back to kind of the old guard and the guys growing up on the short tracks. Jeb cut his teeth on the short tracks like South Boston. So can you speak a little bit about that and then passing the torch off to him?
Well, Clay's done a great job. He has a passion for this facility. His role has expanded, to doing more things than just this facility, but this is where his heart is. I ran into him this morning, and he was, just talking all about the late model stock car race here from Sunday, and And you know, he really has a passion for this facility, and his. I hope the people in the region realize how much he fights for this facility and the fans being able to have the experience that they do have, because he really is an advocate for this racetrack and making sure that things happen to keep the races here. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes. He truly fights for this facility. You know, we talk about young drivers cutting their teeth on the short tracks, but every driver cuts their teeth on the short tracks. You know, nobody just takes off running in Michigan, and it is, you know, drivers are starting younger than they ever have. I mean, you know, you got kids starting racing at 4 years old. I mean, it's just, you know, my son is now, you know, getting ready to become a teenager, and he has more races under his belt than perhaps I do, which is bizarre. And it's just how it's changed. I mean, there's so many more opportunities for young drivers today than there's ever been. That's a good thing. We need youth involved in our sport, not only as spectators but as participants. And when we have youth as participants, we have more youth as spectators. And so there's a whole new young group behind this young group already that will supersede them someday. And that's a great thing. We have great healthy feeder systems today to provide the talent. And honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, if you asked me who's the up-and-coming young driver, I didn't see them. I mean, I really didn't see them. Over the last 2 years, they've emerged. And that was part of it, too. I think everybody felt the same way. I mean, you look around, it's like, well, who was that guy? You know, but now there are young drivers that have separated themselves, and they've started to emerge, and they're gonna come in packs. You'll have a group come this year, and I predict you'll have a group come the following year, and then it'll slow down again. But all it takes is one young driver to do well, and then every car wants a young driver. All it takes is for one experienced guy to do well, and every car wants an experienced guy. So it's so many young guys that are coming have the talent. Ricky Stenhouse has had a way worse year than I thought he would. He's full of talent. So we do have a lot of young talent coming.
Yeah, if anybody ever wants to see it, come to the Virginia's Racing Lovers 300 next year. We had probably 15 drivers under 18.